So the Lieutenant Governor is my guest this evening, and he and I have a lot to both agree about and battle over.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Welcome into my State of Mind. I am Dan York. Pleasure to have you aboard. Dan McKee is my guest, and I have always said that I think the Lieutenant Governor is one of our most earnest public officials. And I consider him a friend, which is not good when I want to have a battle with him because it's pretty loosey-goosey. And his support of the truck tolls is problematic for me, not for him. So he and I will get after that. And then you'll hear about how there's been some big savings for us when it comes to our utility decisions and some education thoughts, because that's really his wheelhouse. So stay tuned. We got a lot going on here. Let's go to the rundown and figure out what's going on. I do think that that is the right thing to say, because it's definitely a disaster postponed, at least a public relations one for PC. Headlines go this way: a 13-hour ordeal. The kids did their homework for a while and stuck around until President Shanley came out and said, all right, I'm going to sign this agreement. And it has a short deadline of March 7th, and hopefully we can make some progress on some things, according to PC's PR guy, Steve Morano.
We've certainly made progress on the diversity front. If you look at our student body, the number of students of color on this campus has more than tripled in Father Shanley's tenure as president. We've gone from about 5% in 2005 to, if you just look at the undergraduate student body here, I think we're up at 18% now. So certainly there's progress in terms of making this a more diverse campus. But it's a little more difficult to try to make it a more inclusive campus so that those students of color feel that they are a welcome and integral part of our community.
Listen, I think that's accurate and appropriate introspection, don't you think? In fact, by serendipity, while this was going on yesterday, we had PC Professor Joe Camerano here, and he reflected on it.
But it's part of the growing pains. 10 years ago, we decided that we really wanted to become a national university and wanted to become more diverse, and we have. But I don't think we understand that when you make those sorts of decisions a few years down the road, you're going to have to address change.
Yeah, and they're going to have to. And while the students are asking for curriculum changes, which may not be manifested by March 7th, hopefully there's some spiritual and soulful changes on the campus that will make them satisfied that progress is being made. Now, a lot of you don't like the idea that kids sat in and forced this change. You know what? If you don't sit in, you don't get a March 7th agreement from President Shanley, Father Shanley. Here's the thing. I'm so glad they didn't toss the kids out, because if they picked them up by the, armpits and walked them out of the place, it's national news, and now the conversation is completely distracted. So good discipline on the part of the PC administration. We'll follow this conversation as we go. Hopefully get some of the kids and Father Shanley in here to talk about it. In the meantime, this is not a good number at all. Rhode Island middle class. This comes from Wall Street Journal, 24/7, and USA Today. They list the top 10 states where the middle class is dying, and guess what Rhode Island got? We're number one. Bernie talks about the middle class a lot. You know that, right?
All right. So we're going to fight for a Medicare for all single-payer system, which will guarantee health care to all people, save middle-class families thousands of dollars a year.
Middle class, middle class. You want to know why he's resonating? Look at this data. Rhode Island, number one in this problem. Middle income growth, -3%. While we're the 18th highest earner, that's kind of a Northeast economy thing right there. The high earners, 10th highest. So what it says is, or actually 18th highest and then 10th highest. Here's the thing, when it comes to income and share of income, there's an imbalance in America, and it's hyperbolized here in Rhode Island, and we got to figure out how to change that. Maybe the Lieutenant Governor has a thought on that. In the meantime, we're getting a little bit of almost clarity from Ocean State Job Lot. Here's the headline. Mark Perlman, the CEO, is saying, look, I'm ready to put in my $50 million new warehouse at Quonset. I've got a tax incentive and subsidy program from the state as part of the overall Gina Raimondo game plan. But I'm not going to build this thing right now because the truck tolls and the $1 million expense annually that I project I will have, I'm Perlman speaking, prevent me from committing. So I asked him on the radio show today, weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO, well, what's going to get you off the pot?
The speaker said tomorrow that I'm going to, now that I'm pivoting to help the trucking industry, we're going to do something that will at least approach what we were originally thinking. And, you know, one way or the other, we're going to help these guys out. I'll put the shovel in tomorrow. I'm not asking anybody to give me exact how you're going to do it. Just tell me that you want to try to do this, because I know anything that you want. You've proven it to me. You can get your way.
I think that's very crafty. Here's the problem. When it comes to the context of the truck tolls, there's nothing the speaker can do. Nothing. Because if he puts the subsidies back in, that's what they took out in order to be able to make the numbers work. If they make very specific local trucking discounts, that's opening them up to discrimination. So I don't know when this game of chicken's going to end, but there's nothing that can be done in direct context to the trucking and tolling problem. And I can't wait to ask Lieutenant Governor about that. Let us go to some headlines here that talk to the issue. Lieutenant Governor joined everybody in support of the truck toll program just days or a day before its final vote. And what else do we have up there to torture him with? And here's his press release that said, yeah, I'm with it. And so you joined the crowd. Welcome.
Hi, Dan.
Mr. Lieutenant Governor, it is an honor and a pleasure to see you.
Yes, let's. I can't
What
wait.
in God's name were you thinking in this whole truck toll situation? I thought perhaps we might get a different point of view. Is the politics too tough that you couldn't kind of go the other way?
I hope not. I was at a ribbon cutting for the Ocean State job lot on about 2 Saturdays ago that turned into an anti-toll rally, which I was not aware that that's what was going to happen. And
Yeah, they're opening up the North Kingstown site, right?
That's correct.
And we've got video of that, Steve, I think. In fact,
it was great.
You were there.
And
in fact, let's look at this video, because it
Yes.
looks like you're in pain, as if you have some kind of digestive problem. Were you discouraged that there was commentary going on there regarding a suspension of the warehouse project?
Well, I think it was important for me to not give give the wrong signal to the people in the state of Rhode Island. So that optic looked as though that I was supporting the anti-toll strategy, and I didn't think that was appropriate. I think that I need to be very honest with the public and tell them where I am, and so that's why you saw me a little bit more vocal and a lot more visible over the last few days leading up to that.
Meaning
vote.
you feel like you were switch pitched at that? Were you invited to go to that opening without the knowledge that they were going to drop that little bomb?
I wasn't aware of that, and I still would have went, but I think I would have. I don't think I would have stood behind the rally the way that it gave.
So really,
the
if you
impression.
didn't get caught at that rally, you wouldn't have put that press release out in support of the truck tolls?
I think if I was asked, I would have. I definitely would have. But the fact of the matter, because I'm standing there, it looked as though I was actually supporting the people who were against the tolls, and I don't think that was fair to the public to have that impression, a false impression like that. So I clarified that.
Did you get pressure from from the governor or the speaker at all to join the team?
No, I think that we were aware of what was going on. We certainly were asked to be involved, but the reason I support is a better plan didn't come forward, in my opinion, and that when I heard that the job lot was paying almost $160,000 in tolls to other states to repair their roads, and yet Rhode Island didn't have the same advantage to toll out-of-state truckers in the same way to help repair our roads, I felt as though that was very unfair to the taxpayers in the state of Rhode Island. So the only plans that were on the table, and maybe tell me a better plan, would have put the entire tax burden to repair the roads onto the taxpayers in the state of Rhode Island, and I don't think that was right. I wouldn't support a plan.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. There's a ton of federal money in every road and bridge program, so there's no state's taxpayers are encumbered by the entire burden of those kinds of projects.
And we're entitled to those as taxpayers that pay into federal taxes. But what I'm talking about is a private business that is being taxed outside the state through tolls to contribute into the repair of those roads. And we don't have that ability to do it. So the tolls were a way that we could enter into that space. Now, If, in fact, that's the only thing that we do, and we think that that's going to move us forward in small business friendliness, which is a big piece of my office, is to try to figure out how to move us up the ladder from last place to more towards the top, then we won't accomplish that. But when in the body of work, when we start talking about into the business community, almost $30 million relief on not paying their electric taxes, and another $30 million that's on the table to lower the unemployment insurance that as a business owner I paid for a lot of years. Those are the type of things, those fines, those pockets of major savings, and then when you put it all together.
I don't think the business community is going to be able to put it all together. It's going to be a heck of a sell to try, and it's the only way, though, so to respond to Mr. Perlman, the response is going to have to be something along the lines of what you're speaking about, because there's a checkmate going on with more subsidy for the truckers, because that already got taken out of the first plan, and you got a discrimination thing waiting to happen when it comes to the American Trucking Association, when it comes to out-of-state and in-state trucking, and even local and blah, blah, blah. It's a mess.
As I said before,
this whole
it's
thing is a
complicated.
mess.
It's
Well,
very complicated.
Oh, I think it's messy.
But
In fact, I think a lot of you who supported this are dyslexic. You go ahead and you put a plan together, and then the speaker, not you, but the speaker says, I'm going to go take care of small business afterwards. Well, why don't you just figure out that you're hurting small business in the first place and drop the toll plan and figure out a way to get this thing done so we don't market to the world, here's 14 tolls when it comes to trucks.
So,
by the way, when we don't get enough money for that, we're going to hit cars even though we say we won't.
So I agree with that. I agree that I've been advocating since I've been in office in ways that would help the small business community in particular.
You agree with
And
what?
I agree.
What I just said, or what?
No, I agree that we should be continually working on ways to make it easier to be in business in the state of Rhode Island, so that we can, employ more people and get out of what you just saw in the metric in terms of a declining middle class in the state of Rhode Island. There's a whole bunch of factors to that. But yes, you need to continue to work on ways to make small business more friendly.
There will be no subsidy or something directly attributable to the toll program that will help Ocean State Job Ladder, any other company, correct? Admit that. I mean, it's not your leadership role, I get it, but admit, and now the analysis is, oh, well, we'll try to help you somewhere else.
Well, I don't think that you can do that legally. That's not a legal offset. But the fact of the matter is, we certainly can set the table in the state of Rhode Island for businesses that are all in, registering their vehicles in our state, paying taxes in our state, paying payroll taxes in our state, all in, and we can create strategies, I think, for the small business community that they all can benefit across the board. I mean, I was in a supermarket down in Portsmouth yesterday and talking to them about what impact this tolling might have on them. Well, let's set the table for all businesses to prosper in the state of Rhode Island, and not necessarily intentionally do an offset. Let's make it more comfortable for businesses to prosper in the state.
Short answer, you think it's a good marketing message that we're going to have 14 gantries set up in this state come 2017?
It all depends where we are in 2017. If we're in 2017, if we pass multiple strategies that can help improve the economy, then I would say that it is. If it's a standalone measure that we don't follow through, and I think the small business community is in a very unique position, just like Mr. Perlman is, to sit there and say, hey, okay, you're going to do something like that? Well, let's make sure that we do more than our share on the other side of the table.
All right, the conversation on that could continue all night.
Yes.
But you actually saved us some money, so you make a comeback on the show and you come back.
I'm
Stay
glad.
with us. All right, let's take the Lieutenant Governor off the hook for a second, put him back on the hook in a place that you only have to spend a couple minutes with the Lieutenant Governor to see how excited he is about this, and for good reason. This was something that was a mess for the citizens of this state, and that is how they pay their electric bills and what choices they have and what knowledge they have about what choices they have. And you went to the Public Utilities Commission and literally, I think in many ways, one man did this project, and now there's some significant savings. So good for you. Explain to everybody what happened.
So we've been intervening with the Public Utility Commission on all dockets that impact small business. And when we did in December of 2014, a month before I got into office, we recognized that there was some really serious problems in the fact that we said that we had competition, but we did nothing to push that competition forward. We found a website in Pennsylvania that had 38% of its ratepayers that took advantage of the competition, and then we worked with the Division of Public Utilities, Tommy Ahern there, and we've in a short period of time, we put up a very workable website that people can save a whole bunch of money and millions of dollars annually now going forward.
And it's Empower RI is the website.
Empower RI, it's a RI.gov website. It costs us about $25,000 to do. The comparable one in Connecticut cost them $1 million to do. So there was good savings there.
Well, the thing is here's what people don't get, and this all came about. I mean, when did you start working? You started working on this as soon as you were elected. So this is a year's worth of work. But one of the things that I find fascinating that most people, consumers, do not understand is that National Grid makes money off its
delivery
template,
yes,
not off the product itself.
Not off the energy.
They actually don't care if you buy electricity from them. They make money on the delivery of the energy.
And that was the light bulb
If you look at your
moment.
bill, there's two things there.
That was the light bulb moment. In those hearings in December, they were saying they were the energy provider of last resort. And I'm sitting there saying, well, if that's true, why would they really work very hard on the rate? And so I went on the line this weekend, and you're going to see multiple vendors there. And I went to one of the vendors, and I, on the energy side of the bill, just saved my household 21% on that energy side of the bill, 21% over the next 5 months. And it's getting, and also I don't have to risk now getting this billing adjustment that I would call a penalty. The grid doesn't call it a penalty, but it's a billing adjustment.
Right.
And that was costing ratepayers a whole lot of dollars if they timed it wrong, and also it put them in a spot where they didn't want to make a change for fear that they could get charged.
I'm going backwards on that. I'm not sure everybody understands that. So even those who are smart enough, and I don't mean to insult you if you don't know about this, but because a lot of people don't.
Why
They
would you
think
know?
The grid is the grid, and you pay them for the electricity and for the poles to get us there. But even those who are smart enough to say, you know what, I'm going to shop for another place, got caught in contractual intervals with National Grid that actually, when they saved money at Acme Electricity, they got to pay National Grid back, and it didn't wash, or it hurt them.
Because they timed their change at the wrong time. Well,
Right.
We intervened with the Public Utility Commission, and in July we were able to partner in with multiple parties, and that billing adjustment was eliminated. So there's no longer a billing adjustment for anybody in the state of Rhode Island.
So you have to agree to what kind of an interval? You said 5 months for your home.
Well, in that menu now, and the good news too is that the division is vetting all these suppliers, so you don't have to be worried about dealing with a snake oil salesman either, which there's some of that goes into this market.
Mm-hmm.
So they're vetted, they're legitimate vendors, and so there's proposals there that you could choose a 3-month or up to a 24-month, depending on how you wanted to time the market. If in fact you wanted to time the market, I went with a 5-month strategy, and then the company that I went to, they're going to give me a 30 to 60-day notice when that 5-month ends, so that I can have the options to to save dollars or go back to the National Grid. And the other thing on that, Dan, everybody thinks that somehow that when they have an electric out problem that they no longer call the National Grid. No, they continue to call the National Grid. The National Grid will provide the same service, and the bill will look exactly the same, except there'll be less money.
It's safe, it's smart, it saves you money.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest successes of our office in the last year, because this is worth millions of dollars to the ratepayers, which we originally did it on the behalf of the small business, but now we find out that residential people can save hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So go shopping for your electricity now. It's safe, it's smart, and it saves you money, and give him credit. He did it. When we come back, he wants to do some more things. He can't shake this education thing. We'll be right back. All right, so one of the things that Lieutenant Governor Daniel McKee has been well known for as mayor of Cumberland, my hometown, the Mayoral Academy, the charter effort, is this out-of-the-box thinking, as you would say, and battling the status quo, as you would say, when it comes to education. Here's your latest op-ed headline. Make great education a right in Rhode Island. Well, who's going to argue with that? Devil's in the details. Where are we, and what do you want to get accomplished here? We got a little bit of uphill battle right now, trying to maintain the success story that the mayoral academies have been and charters can be in general.
I think
and impacting the whole public system.
We definitely are an uphill battle, because there's a lot of information out there, and there's a thought that somehow that we're bankrupting school districts out there, which is totally inaccurate. I would just say that this initiative that you just saw the headline for is not a mayoral academy rally. They're going to be a piece of that pie, I think, and a lot of other constituents, but it's to mirror what Massachusetts did in the mid-90s. And what Massachusetts did is they put business community together with church communities, which we plan to do, and political leadership, municipal leadership. And they outlined a plan that moved them from the middle of the pack to the top of the pack. And when you talk about, I would be very curious to see where Massachusetts fits on that the middle class income.
Well, based on the
issue.
Massachusetts formulas, so Steve just put up this graphic. Steve, could you put it up again, because it's a little out of context. Talk to me about what you mean by this.
So the gap between where Rhode Island is and where Massachusetts is extraordinary in terms of the outcomes and in terms of performance on our students. If you close that gap completely, and all of a sudden Rhode Island became even with Massachusetts the way they are right now, on an average work week, Dan, it's worth $1 million an hour in earning power for the families that live in the state of Rhode Island. That's $8 million a day, almost $40 million a month. And we've got that verified through economists and through reports that we know are very, very, very valid.
A lot of people have a hard time connecting the dots between education and economy.
They do.
And you're telling me that you can connect those dots clearer for
right.
people?
And so this effort that we're talking about is kind of a 2E project to it. So it's education and the economy. They're very much linked. And the future of Rhode Island is really dependent, the economics of Rhode Island for families is directly connected to how good their public schools are. And we can show that. And what Massachusetts has put a plan together where they were very strong on making it accountable, measuring outcomes, empowering principals, having charters being a piece of the plan, and they've been very successful at it. So what they're doing now is they're continuing to raise the bar. So if we set our standards that we're going to reach Massachusetts levels within a 5-year time frame, and we can organize the business community, and really advocate for what Massachusetts did, we'll have a whole different economy in the state of Rhode Island.
Okay, and so in 60 seconds, how are you doing that?
So we're going to set up the strategy in our office so that we're going to be laying out the argument, comparing schools, because people think it's all about the urban problems that we have, which is true, but it's also the suburban districts. When we compare, we're going to show people in the state of Rhode Island, when we compare similar districts against similar districts, where they are and where they could be.
Like a North Kingstown, Rhode Island versus a Duxbury in
That's
Massachusetts, you're saying that, and this is just hypothetical, North Kingstown ain't cutting it.
Yes, I've been in districts throughout the state of Rhode Island, and they're telling me that they're doing very well, and it's the urban districts bringing us down. And when I compare it to bordering communities or similar communities, they're 10, 15, 20 points behind.
So what is it? You got to identify
schools.
the myth that we're doing well by comparing apples to oranges, meaning Rhode Island to Massachusetts, and then you got an action plan to improve it.
That's correct.
And is the governor embracing this, and does it reflect on some of her budget initiatives?
I think it will, and we had a good meeting this week with a very, very diverse group. That diverse word is the theme, the central one: business community, philanthropy, minority community, and we see that that a organization is going to form similar to what happened in Massachusetts. That's going to drive it from that nonprofit point of view, and then our office is going to continue to hammer home the point that, look, we need to move closer to Massachusetts than further away from Massachusetts.
All right, well, that's going to require more in-depth conversation. So as the plan formulates, get back in here and get on the radio, and we'll talk more about it.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting, and it's a heavy lift, but it's one that we need to have as in the state of Rhode Island.
All right, appreciate it. Okay. You were 2 for 3 today.
Thank you. That's better. Hey, that's 66. I'd be Hall of Fame.
We'll be right back. We're going to have to stay tuned on what the Speaker of the House is going to provide for businesses like Ocean State Job Lot. When it comes to direct response to the tolls, it's going to be a big fat 0. Maybe the Lieutenant Governor's right. There are other programs that will mitigate the damage, but I don't think so. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.